So, F1's week break news, and back by popular demand, the bunnies and Honey, there you go, there she is, not facing the camera, and they're just chilling inside with me because, yeah, they can. Also, considering it is Movember, or No Shave November, however you wish to call it, I will be wearing this throughout the remainder of my video. It is very fluffy and it tickles my nose, so I'll try to make this quick. And also you guys will probably be laughing throughout the whole thing at how ridiculous I look rather than actually listening to what I'm saying. Anyways, question 1. Post the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, drivers have been warned about their use of bad language in the podium interviews. What is your view on the situation? And I think the fact that they've been warned is ridiculous because they are adults, not children. And granted, they are adults, they are meant to, set an example, and there are rules and laws about swearing on television, before a certain time, in England and in America, I believe, and a few other countries. But then, I was talking to other people and they were wondering what's the big deal, because they don't have such laws in the country. If they do, no one actually cares about them much. I'm not sure, I could be getting this wrong, but a French girl I was talking to was going, this whole thing seems ridiculous. People do this all the time on live television, and it is live. You have to expect that drivers are going to say things like this, especially when you have Kimi Räikkönen and Sebastian Vettel on the podium together. Are you really surprised? And yeah, the whole thing, the fact that Sebastian Vettel had to then apologise afterwards, kudos to him, but it just seems a bit silly. It's like, the whole point of the podium interviews really is to sort of get their sort of reaction right after this amazing thing which has happened to them, and sometimes the reaction is to throw around a few swear words. So, do we want their actual reaction, or do we want something edited and sort of, planned and, sorry, this is falling off, planned and and not authentic at all, not their actual feelings? That's just, I found the whole thing funny, and everyone I talked to found it funny, and I think 22 people who were watching the BBC didn't find it funny out of millions of Formula 1 viewers. So, you know what, they can shut up, because if after such an amazing race like Abu Dhabi, the thing you're concentrating on is the fact that two drivers are a bit naughty with the words they use, I strongly suggest you reevaluate the way you look at life. This is really tickling my nose. I'm not sure how you men do this. This is impossible. Question 2. I asked Twitter, my followers on Twitter, how to pronounce this fellow's name, and they were no help whatsoever. So I will make a few embarrassing attempts. Not that wearing a fuzzy mustache isn't embarrassing already. Tony Fernandes has stepped down from his team principal role at Caterham with, there we go, Cyril Abiteboul, is it Cyril? Cyril, CA, we'll go with that, CA, taking over the position. What is your opinion on Tony's decision, and is it a good thing for the team? Now, while I do like Caterham as a team, I must admit here that I do not know a huge amount about Tony Fernandes, or CA, as I will now refer to him. From what I understand is that Tony Fernandes does have quite a few other sort of obligations that he is involved in. He does something to do with football. I don't know anything about football, so I can't really say much about that. And he does, I think, AirAsia, he does something with, I really have no idea. But it appears to me that he has a lot of things to do, a lot on his mind, and with the situation that Caterham are in this year, I think they really need someone who is focused completely and utterly on Formula One and really knows what he's doing. I'm not saying Tony Fernandes doesn't know what he's doing, and he has been good for the team, and like I said, I do like Caterham, but perhaps this is for the best. I'm not too sure. This is really annoying. I'm not too sure about CA's abilities, but we'll see. And, you know, like I said, Caterham were in a really tough situation this year. After the winter break, the upgrades didn't go as they had hoped. And even worse, then Marussia got extremely lucky and also, through a lot of hard work, managed to overtake them in the Constructors' Championship. And it's unlikely that Caterham will be able to grab that place back. And now it's also, they apparently won't be able to afford Heikki Kovalainen, who is an amazing driver and is doing amazing things at Caterham. So they're really in a lot of trouble. And we all know that teams in a lot of trouble, they make drastic sort of changes to make sure that sort of this doesn't happen again, or we can get out of this rut. And yeah, so I think it could be a good thing for the team. I think it can't really get much worse. I mean, you could get worse in HRT, but then I think you should probably just, I don't think you could get that bad that quickly. I hope you can't. So yeah, I wish CA luck, and I will enjoy seeing other commentators from the BBC and Sky trying to attempt that impossible name. I'm glaring at it right now. I honestly have no idea. I had over 900 people couldn't tell me how to pronounce his name. So, anyways, question 3. He's licking my hand. Just sitting there, licking my hand. Have you seen things this bizarre on the internet? Or probably you have. But still, I like to think this is gonna go in. This is as bizarre as it gets for me. A girl with a moustache and a rabbit licking her hand. Pretty weird, right? A wonky moustache. Oh dear. Question 3. This week saw the Abu Dhabi Young Drivers test, but with McLaren opting to use the long-term driver Gary Paffett for some of the sessions, do you think it is fair for teams to use the opportunity for testing parts and car development over the purpose to develop F1 drivers for the future? I'm sort of in two minds when it comes to young drivers. I think it's great that we're getting them into it, because, you know, there was this issue with sort of the lost generation of Formula One, of drivers in Formula One, because they weren't getting in enough young drivers and we were losing potential talents. I mean, imagine had, you know, what if we didn't have Toro Rosso? Sebastian Vettel might have never really gotten a chance to sort of break into Formula One, and how different would the season be now without Sebastian Vettel? So I think it is a good thing that we do have these young drivers tests, but then equally we have so many young drivers, and I mean, it's all ambiguous, the young drivers, because, you know, Gary Paffett isn't necessarily young, and not all the drivers are young. I mean, Jaime Alguersuari is 22 and isn't allowed to compete in the young drivers test, whereas 26-year-olds are. So, you know, there's some ambiguity with what the young drivers test sort of really means. But we have a lot of drivers this year who have sort of 2 years or less experience, a lot of young drivers, and I don't think we have an issue that really with getting in new drivers. We have, thanks to sort of the back markers, we're getting in new drivers each season, and we're seeing new faces each time, so I don't think there's really necessarily a huge issue there. I think also, you know, teams are going to do what they're going to do. You know, they don't have enough testing time, they feel, so they're going to utilize their young drivers test, like Mercedes were doing it themselves, and quite frankly, who can blame them? They're in the situation they're in. And also teams like Ferrari and Red Bull, they're going to want to do it because, you know, they have drivers who are competing in the championship, you know, so it's going to obviously happen that teams are going to use the these sessions for testing, and will probably want to use drivers with experience so they know what they're doing and they can get reliable data from these sessions. Either way, Gary Paffett is not a driver we've seen in Formula 1 properly yet, so yeah, I don't really see what the big issue is. I mean, it's not just McLaren that does this, there are other teams, and I don't think we have an issue with getting in young drivers. We have a lot of young drivers, and this has happened year after year, and it doesn't bother me. I don't think it's unfair. I don't think it's fair. I think, quite frankly, what people should what should be taken from all of this is that perhaps more testing sessions is needed. And I know that sort of goes against the cost regulations within Formula 1, but I think that could be a good introduction to reintroduction, if that makes sense, to let teams have more time to test. And then maybe they will actually run young drivers. Or, if they want the young drivers test to be a young drivers test, they need to be more clear on what a young driver actually is. And then also, because not all of them are young, and then also make it sort of stricter rules and mandatory on don't test new parts, use the car you have now, blah blah, something like that. But I have no issue with the way it is now. Bonus question. Now that Austin is finally just days away, what are your initial thoughts on the location event ahead of its debut on the Formula 1 calendar? Now, I am very much a Europe F1 snob. I believe the home of Formula 1 is in Europe. I think, some of my favourite tracks are in Europe. Equally, some of my favourite tracks are out of Europe. And it's not bothered me the past couple of years that America wasn't on the calendar. It's not once bothered me. In fact, I completely forgot about America, if I'm totally honest. It didn't once cross my mind of oh yeah, what, America, where did that country go? It's never once crossed my mind. I was very sort of not anxious, but I was a bit ambivalent about the track because, as you all know, I am not a fan of Herman Tilke. This is really tickling my nose. I am not a fan of Herman Tilke in the slightest, and his races, of course Abu Dhabi was fantastic, but rarely, his tracks are pretty bad. So I guess I think, considering how many tracks there are in America and sort of what they could have done with that kind of space, they really shouldn't have gone with Tilke. But then equally, I think the Austin track will be better than the New Jersey track because just street races. So that's a whole other rant. So yeah, I think that I'm trying to be open-minded about the whole thing because I know that America does. It's sold out, from what I understand, and started selling fast their tickets, and that's impressive. So clearly they have demand, which is what I want. That makes me happy that at least people want it there. America did plan a boycott on Formula 1 after the tyre issue. Fair enough, that was a very annoying situation for them, but they boycotted it and they were throwing trash onto the track. So if they didn't want it, well, okay, fine. There are plenty of other countries that want Formula 1. But clearly they want it back, and I'm glad to see that at least people are going. And that's what makes that what I'm totally okay with that. So keep an open mind. I hope it's going to be good. I hope it's going to be interesting. Mark Webber, I think, was warning that it might not be that interesting because of... Was it Mark Webber? I can't remember. One of the drivers was saying that basically Red Bull is very strong. Probably you won't see that much on-track action, apparently. I really can't remember which driver said this. But yeah, keeping an open mind, even though it's Tilke, and just happy we're in a country that people appear to be appreciating it, or at least going to the race. So yeah. And that concludes my unusually long fan formula. I seem to make the longest videos when there has been no Formula 1 on the weekend, which is interesting. So yeah, I've actually talked so long that I put my rabbits almost to sleep. Well, she's falling asleep, he's just being cheeky. Anyways, I should stop now before this mustache makes me sneeze. Thank you for listening.